Hey y'all, it's your queen coming through right quick, right fast, maybe, with a royale review for My Wife and Kids, Season 1, Episode 3. And the name of this episode is Grassy Knoll. And I had to look up and see what that means. Like, what is a grassy knoll? I've heard the term, but I ain't ever known exactly what it means. So, in looking it up, it seems as though, in simple terms, it's a small grassy hill. Interesting. So what that gives me thus far is that this episode, the grassy knoll, is like a symbolism of the growth that's going on, like growing pains, hills to get over, things of that nature. So, all that being said, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the specificities of this episode. So, it starts off with Jay and Michael essentially crossing paths in the upstairs hallway, and Jay has a box of Michael's things to give away to Goodwill and such. And so, he like, wait a minute. We're going to keep this right here talking about his hat. He calls it his favorite hat. It's like one of those New York sports type caps or whatever. And she is like, you don't even wear none of this junk. She calling it junk and all of this and that. And I'm like, I don't think she think her stuff is junk. But she fooling with his stuff and it's junk. But she does emphasize that, like, you ain't wore this. You ain't wore none of this stuff in years. And he even basically, like, confirms what she said, talking about, oh, I just wore this, like, 7 years ago. Sir, that's a whole milestone. So he like references her shoes and talking about, you got a closet full of shoes and stuff. You don't wear them all the time. You ain't wore a lot of them shoes that you got in your closet. And she like, See, shoes don't go out of style. I get rid of a pair of shoes in the next couple of months, a year or so, I'm gonna have to go spend a rack to get another pair. Your hats, however, go out of style, and we can get rid of those. Now, I must do say there is a bit of truth to that. But all the way around, a lot of fashion trends tend to reemerge and repeat themselves in her way. But I do also understand, you know what I'm saying? Out with the old, in with the new, you know what I'm saying? You gotta purge and recalibrate. I think that's the word. Recalibrate. Yeah, recalibrate and stuff. Okay? So, Michael pulls out this, like, blue and white, sparkly, capped beanie type situation. It looked like something that a person with locks would wear. It's giving like Jamaican disco type shit. And he up there doing like a little 70s dance with the hat on his head. It's way too big for his little pee head. On top of the fact that he ain't got no hair. Now, there's definitely like a lot of implication and jokes and stuff concerning that he likely used to have hair, but he ain't got none now. So that hat look an absolute fool on his head. He looked like, I can't think of the name of it. But I think it's like a little character that's on like the Jetsons, or it might be Space Ghost or something. But it's a little itty bitty alien looking thing, and he got a big old hat. It's some other like little cartoons and stuff that it'll remind you of too. But I can't think of them all like right off the bat. But either way, your boy looked real animated and cartoonish with his little old head and his big old hat. So they basically ends up making a deal that within the next week, they're going to have to wear all of the things that they want to keep in order to keep them. Okay? And let the pettiness begin, because this definitely kickstarts a very funny, like, subtle joke that goes on throughout this episode. And also kind of makes this one of my favorite episodes. So in the midst of them dispersing, as Michael is, about to walk downstairs, he ends up hearing this terrible music. Absolutely terrible. So it's coming from Junior's room. Michael walks in and he sees Junior and one of Junior's friends, who is being played by Robert Richard. I believe that's his name, Robert Richard. The guy from Cousin Skeeter, and he played Arnez on 101. He was also in, is it Magic Mike that he was in, or is it Chocolate City that he was in? It's one of them. He was either in Magic Mike or he was in Chocolate City. Either way, he played a male stripper also in one of their movies. I can't remember which one, but it's one of them. Either way, by now, you should know who I'm talking about. So, they in there, and apparently, Jay done gave Junior Michael's old guitar, and I'm assuming that keyboard that was in there was also an old keyboard of Michael's. Either that, or that was Tommy, who is Robert Richard's character's name. That could have been his keyboard, because it seemed like he was doing some music stuff on his own and all of that. But whatever, what have you, Tommy on the keyboard and Junior on the guitar, and they both are rhythmically inept AF, okay? It is an absolute fool going on in there. And so Michael is like, cut all that out. Well, what is this? And who is this beige kid? And Junior tells him, that's his friend Tommy, and they just in there jamming. And basically he's the one that reveals too that Jay gave them the instruments. They're referring to them as junk and stuff that Michael don't want no more, essentially because he don't use it. And so they keep saying they just jamming. Okay. Y'all sound like y'all in a jam. That's okay. And Junior gonna say it's like a blues, Dr. Dre, Britney Spears fusion. Michael say, see, that's the problem. You got too much going on. You got to make it pure. You got to bring it down to a simplistic sense. And you know what I'm saying? Let it grow from there. Now, I feel both ways. You do have to start with the purity of it all. You got to start with one thing and then let that be great. And then try to remix it or, add your other, your other elements and genres that you may want to mix and match and all of that. But you got to start with something just solid first, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, they reference Jimi Hendrix, and he's talking about Junior talking about watch us, we know Purple Haze, excuse me why I kiss the sky, and they playing it terrible sound, child, terrible. And Michael stops them like, please stop, please, and let me show you how this is actually done. So Michael takes the guitar. He's going in. He's going ham. He acting like he playing the guitar with his lips. He put it all behind his head, all behind his back. Then he starts to do a whirly bird and slam the thing on the floor, tow it up, pulled out a match from somewhere and lit the daggone guitar on fire. Honey, he blazed the track literally. And I'm like, why? Why you kill the guitar? Why you kill the guitar? The guitar ain't do it. The guitar ain't do it. Junior did it. But child, it make me wonder, was he just being musically dramatic, or was Junior playing so bad that it made him want to kill the guitar, or did he just not want Junior to have his guitar? And I asked that because at the conclusion of that scene, and we transition to the next scene, it is shown Michael having gifted Junior a brand new guitar. Like he went and bought him a brand new one, and it's not an electric guitar like the one that Michael had. It's I forgot the name of it that he said, but it's basically like a state-of-the-art, more standard guitar. So I guess it's one that's like prestige, but it's also better for a beginner to start with. So it'll last a while, and it's essentially. Now, a guitar is not simplistic, period. But the type of guitar that he got him is more simplistically appropriate for someone who is just beginning to play. And so Junior is elated, and he like, bro, if you want to break anything else in my room, be my guest, because the way you upgraded with this guitar, ooh. And I heard that because there was a nice guitar, and it was shining. And Michael told him the way I was thinking, you better take care of that guitar, and you better do what you need to do to learn how to actually play it, honey, because you're going to have to respect the beauty that guitar is on God. Okay, and I got the name, I think. He said it's a Gibson Les Paul 1950s reissue with humbucker pickups. So it's definitely a classic guitar. Ain't nothing to play with, okay? Official. Also, let me know, okay, the reoccurring joke. Michael is up here in a Michael Jackson costume, essentially. It looks like a costume, but it looks like an outfit, because like during that time, I guess everybody, they wanted to dress like their idol, so they wanted to dress like Michael Jackson, so they were wearing like the jackets like as leisure wear, but to us now it probably looks like a costume. That's what I'm thinking. But either way, random as hell, this man standing up here in this Michael Jackson costume. And so you ain't even gotta like reinstate it, is because that's something that he wants to keep. And this gives like another instance of like growth and change, that symbolism and that theme that's going on, because it's like, where you gonna wear that at? What you gonna do with it? Unless it's Halloween or you going to just a casual costume party. Like, what you gonna do with that? So it's like a part of growing and a part of change is being able to let go. And you need to let it go. But so he does a little Michael Jackson dance combo into asking Junior, where did he meet Tommy? And let me also note that Junior has on this, like, it looks kind of like, it's a nice top now, but it's given that it's something that he got out of that box. It's probably like a hand-me-down, something that was Michael's back in the day, and he's giving it to Junior, so Junior has it on. It's like this, like, kind of dark brown wood tone, Western type of shirt. It's got this design going down the front that looks like it's braided. It doesn't have the texture, but it has the visual of, like, those braided cords down the front of the shirt, and it looks like something that a musician would wear. And then Junior also has on these, like, Karen shades. They like really, really big Karen type shades. They almost look like goggles, and they are like jet black or some shit. He like really feeling himself. Baby, I cannot. But Junior tells Michael that he met Tommy in art class and he just seemed like a cool kid. They bonded and all that. And Michael is like, well, the kid is tone deaf. And Junior turned around talking about, listen, before you judge, make sure you take a look at the man in the mirror. Referencing his Michael Jackson outfit as well. And that's all it is too, because Junior, I'm willing to bet that that likely wasn't Michael playing the guitar for real, unless he played it over, like he recorded it before actually doing his on-screen routine. So it could have been him playing it on the recording, but he wasn't actually playing it in that moment. But either way, Michael, the character, definitely blazed the track. So what you talking about? You need to take a look at the man in the mirror, honey. You better take a look at the man in the mirror, honey, because you is tone deaf as well. Booski, you need to be trying to learn something from your zeddy. Okay? But yeah, he tells him he needs to make sure he take a look at the man in the mirror, and Michael tells him he look like a gay insect. And Junior is standing there looking at him with them daggone shades on. That's why I put emphasis on them shades too, because that is what's making him look like a gay insect. The mosey up there with them big old shades on, and Junior has a big old head. So if the shades are that big to where it's like consuming his face, you know them shades big. Like, what are you doing? So in the midst of, them dispersing from their conversation, Claire comes in the kitchen like, come on, Mom, I was supposed to be there like 10 minutes ago and all this, that, and the third. She's trying to go to the mall. I guess Jay is taking her to meet some friends at the mall. Either that or Jay is just taking her to the mall in general, and it could be like their one-on-one girls time together also. And Katie runs in. She want to go, okay? But no, Katie can't go. This is, implementing that it's giving attention to their age difference, and it's also another implication of the growth thing. And in the midst of Claire's growing phases, her like alone time and her one-on-one time and things like that are of a higher value for her now. And whereas Katie is also growing up, but just in a different stage, so she's looking up to Claire and she wants to be with Claire a lot because, she is trying to bond with Claire and she's trying to get inspiration with Claire also. And like kind of seeking guidance in that way. And Claire is a bit resistant to that responsibility and that element of being a big sister, And so Claire in this sweating it to the oldies, sweating it out to the oldies. It's like an old videotape. That's the type of outfit she got on. With the long, exaggerated, colorful socks, with the tights, and the crazy high top shoes, with the colorful band around her head, hair all over her head, this big long shirt, just sweating it to the oldies, honey. Look like she finna get into a videotape. So she throws that on before they go out. But before they go out, they have to explain to Katie, like, no, it's big girl day at the mall. You can't go. And we'll see about taking you the next time. And maybe your daddy will do something with you as well while we're gone. And so Claire turns around and she meets Katie on her level and very kindly tells her, yeah, next time you'll go with me and all of that, this, that, and the third. Basically reaffirming what Jay said. And I like the manner that she did it in. And that's why it kind of made it interesting to me that the description of the episode says that Claire is being mean to Katie. And I do recognize moments in the show where Claire, was wrong. It's like she was avoiding Katie. It's like at a certain point she was icing her out. But I don't know if I feel like that's enough to say that Claire was being mean to her. Because I feel like there's another episode in maybe season 3, season 4. Basically, it's when the other Claire is on the show. And that Claire was actually mean to Katie. Not even in just that particular episode. She was mean to her in the episode. But in general, I feel like the light-skinned Claire was actually mean to Katie. Like, textbook definition, mean to Katie. They had their nice moments too and all of that. But light-skinned Claire was actually mean to Katie. The girl that plays Claire in the first season, like I said, she was a little icy at times. But when she did approach Katie, she handled her very tenderly. And we're going to revisit that conversation once we get to the end also. But they get that squared away, and Claire and Jay leave. And Michael is like, oh, okay, yeah, you ready to play with your dad? And Katie ain't trying to hear that shit. She throw her piggy bank on the ground. And also, okay, that just occurred to me too. Katie ran in with this big old piggy bank, which shows not only did she want to go, but she also wanted to go and she wanted to buy some stuff. And that was kind of her way, I guess, of trying to bargain. She ran in with the excitement and with the piggy bank trying to show, hey, I won't be a burden because I got my own money. And they still left her at home. So she throws the piggy bank down on the ground and she runs off screaming, crying on some shit. And overall, I noticed that Parker McKenna is a great actress, but I just really want to give special attention to her performance in this episode in particular, because especially as a child actress, your girl was acting her face off, okay? And we're going to talk more about her acting skills as a little girl once we get, throughout the episode as well. But she throws the piggy bank down, runs off, and comes back to get the piggy bank. And when she comes back, Michael got his arms open like he thinks she gonna run into his arms for comfort. No, she just pick up the piggy bank and immediately runs back off, runs upstairs. Poor thing. And like I said, this is also a part of Katie's growing pains. And a part of that is her having to learn how to handle and process rejection and not being included in everything. And so in the next scene, Michael goes upstairs to tap in with her and console her and all that. And she's upstairs sulking, laid up under this big old pillow. And there are other things, and I'm going to point them out indeed. But this right here, this scene, when Michael goes upstairs, he walks in the room. Even the way the room is set up, it looks a lot like Rudy's room from The Cosby Show. And the way he approaches Katie and the way he handles her in this scene is a lot. It's very parallel to The Cosby Show, and when he would go upstairs to talk to Rudy or go upstairs to talk to Olivia and, give them comfort and words of wisdom and all that. And it's so crazy, too, that, like I said, the room is even designed and set up very similar to Rudy/Olivia's room. Because, when Olivia got on there, she was sleeping in Rudy's room. But yeah, and so even the way that Michael enters the room and he's joking and he's like, oh, it's a little girl in here being eaten by a pillow and all of that, very Cosby-esque. And child, I know it's the scandal attached to Cosby now. We acknowledge it. It's trash. But what I want to focus on here is the homage that seems to be given to Bill Cosby's talent and his skill and his techniques as a comedian. and, you know, the influence that he had over, not over comedy, but black sitcoms, and black male representation on television, and black family representation on television. And I feel like I kind of sort of touched on this, like maybe in my review of the first episode, where I was like, this is another show that kind of puts a heavy focus on showing this successful, full black family. So yeah, very interesting. We'll discuss that more going forward. But continuing on, Katie is at first not moved by, you know, Michael's approach and all of that. And Michael basically has to just grab her and turn her over and tickle her and just, you know, tease her and all of that. And eventually she opens up and laughs, and it's so cute. But Michael essentially, you know, taps in and is like, you know, what's the problem? What's eating at you? You know what I'm saying? And Katie has interpreted that Claire hates her because she won't let her go with her to the mall. And so, again, her learning how to process and handle rejection. And I feel like a lot of people have issues with that. So I love that this was made like a conversation, especially with the youngest child of the family, because that's where those lessons and things should start, you know? Because a lot of people, they get rejected or they get turned down or they get, you know, excluded from something, and they automatically think that the person who rejected them hates them or thinks ill of them and all of this. And it's not always the case. So, you know, about not taking everything personal and not raging war about everything too. Because, child, Katie is very vindictive in a way. And that's definitely a trait that I feel like they put in there to show something that she kind of inherits from Michael. Because Michael is quite petty and vindictive. But Michael goes into this funny story, basically his own adaptation of The Tortoise and the Hare. And this, again, he does very much so like Bill Cosby, how Bill Cosby would, you know, relate to the kids by telling them a story, and it seemed like it ain't got nothing to do with nothing. But if you really pay attention to what's being said, it applies perfectly, and it's funny as hell, and it's also like a good way for him to appeal to the youth. And that's definitely a method that Michael is using in this instance. So in a nutshell, his Tortoise and the Hare story lends to the hare being Claire. And, you know, they all over the place. They going. And the tortoise is trying to keep up. And then at one point, the tortoise is trying to warn the hare about something, but it's too late. And the hare runs into something, hurts themselves. And, you know, it teaches the tortoise a lesson. But before he can really complete the story, Katie asks him, what's the moral? And so he like, what you know about morals? And she like, well, there's always one at the end of the story. And that's so cute. And it also just lets you know how much kids learn from the things that they indulge in. Which is why you got to be very mindful about what you have them indulging in. But that's a good sign that she knows what a moral is, enough to even ask him what's the moral of his story. So that shows that they have her indulging in some pretty good stuff, right? So Michael explains to her, the moral of the story is Claire is in a position and in a stage of her life where she's having to live and make mistakes and learn so that she can come back and tell you all the things not to do. And I also feel like, making her the hare is also showing that she's in a stage of her life where she's trying to grow up fast. Like, she is growing up fast, but at the same time, she's also trying to grow up fast because of all the extra influences. You go to school, you have your friends, and they may be getting raised somewhat differently, and it all comes in and it influences each other and all of that. And also, it is to be noted that Claire is the middle child, and at one point she was the youngest child. And so with that change happening, it's like Claire could also be desperately trying to find some things that make her different, that make her stand out, that make her feel more valuable in her position and who she is, and specifically, her role within the family as well. And Michael is also emphasizing to Katie, not only, dealing with the rejection of it all and impressing like the value of patience to her, but I also feel like he's emphasizing to her sometimes the value of not being included in everything. Essentially, you don't want to be included in everything. So it's stressing to her that it's sometimes best to observe and let things happen so that you can learn from other people's mistakes and not make those mistakes. So definitely a good conversation done very well in a way that, is able for a very young child to consume, because that's a big lesson. Like I said, a lot of adults don't even have that down. So I just really love that implication, because child, you don't want or need to be included in everything. And we'll revisit that a little bit when we get to the conversation that Michael ends up having with Claire. But now that he's got Katie, cheered up and with a greater understanding of things, he offers to take her out for some ice cream. And they giddy it up and they go on along. In the next scene, Michael is wearing a dashiki, cowboy boots, and some teal pants that don't match Nathaniel. Oh, child. I ain't gonna lie. I wanted them boots, though. Them boots was nice. But Junior comes downstairs talking about he's having writer's block. And Michael is like, you need a theme and a melody, and then you build around that. You gotta feel it. And Junior is like, I've been trying that, ain't nothing working. And Michael is like, you need a muse, some inspiration. And he references other types of artists, like Van Gogh, and him chopping his ear off for a woman. And he asks Junior, what is he inspired by? And Junior's like, video games, pork rinds, and naked women. And when it comes to, writing a song, that's not totally bad, okay? And so, Michael doesn't even criticize him. He's just like, okay, well, that's your first verse. And, child, Junior probably should just stick to drawing, because your boy is quite rhythmically inept. Very much so. Okay? Anywho, so he goes upstairs, video games, pork rinds, and naked women. Okay. And so essentially we follow Junior upstairs into the next scene, and he's working on writing his verse. And he can't think of anything that rhymes with pork rinds. And so this is another thing that makes me feel like, Junior, baby, maybe you just ain't got it. Because time, line, watermelon, rind, divine, shine, glide. Like, like, I don't know. Like, if you got it, you got it. You know what I'm saying? Some things can be taught, but it just seems like your boy ain't got it. Because, I don't know, maybe he needs to read more or something. I don't know. But it just seems like, he ain't really got it. But he asking Tommy what rhymes with pork rinds. Tommy is like throwing around a ball or something and ends up like losing his handle of it, and it flies over into the blinds. And so he like, need some blinds? And see, just like that, blinds. Like, anyway. And so this is also where we get like another parallel to the Cosby Show type shit. Because in this case, you could see Junior as Theo and Tommy as, I don't know if I would say Tommy would be Cockroach in this situation or just one of his other friends. I can't remember the friend that had given Theo a joint in the Cosby Show, because we can get it. But yeah, there was an episode of the Cosby Show where one of Theo's friends gave him a joint. He didn't smoke it or nothing, but I think it was like in his book or in his book bag or something, and his parents ended up finding it and all that stuff. But in this one, and which I like the way that they implemented this too, because definitely much needed conversation. So Junior is like talking about how he, wants to expand his mind, and he just feel like he needs more inspiration and all of that. So Tommy pulls out a joint. Honey, I already rolled and everything. And I'm like, Junior's a child. At the same time, Junior, boy, what's wrong with you? Because you can't see that, like your daddy just said, Tommy is tone deaf. And if Tommy just pulled a joint out of his pocket, already rolled and everything, one would have to assume that he done already had him a little taste or something, you know what I'm saying? So if that ain't helped him thus far, what is this fixing to do? You know what I'm saying? Use your context clues. Use your, you know what I'm saying, your good sense God gave you. Maybe he didn't give Junior none. I don't know. But yeah, so Tommy talking about, yeah, stimulate your mind. It's Friday. I'll get you high. But he's running down talking about all the greats that use marijuana, Bob Marley, and a couple of other people that he named. Many of those people that are now deceased and were deceased even during that time period. And not only that, a lot of the people that he named were also on other hard drugs. So maybe he missed that part, or he just wanted a reason to smoke some dope. But on a serious note too, it does also show the influence and like the dangers of how certain things are portrayed, because even now it's a like battle and struggle against this like glorification of drugs. And marijuana, is debatable, because marijuana is kind of like a 50-50 thing. It affects everybody differently. Like, most things affect everybody differently. But what I mean is, moderation is definitely key when it comes to marijuana. And it's definitely not a good idea, too, to be indulging in such a thing when your brain is not fully developed, unless you have a prescription, because, the child may need some assistance that includes marijuana, or marijuana would help in a medicinal sense and things of that nature. So yeah, but marijuana definitely should not be demonized like many other things, or the way that it has been demonized and was more so demonized in this particular time period and things of that nature, all that. But also using it to try to evoke talent, or using it as something to depend on for your creativity, or become reliant on for whatever the fact, that's not medical, that's toxic. And the influence and how it's portrayed and how it's glamorized when it comes to musicians and the music industry and stuff like that, it can be very misleading and very toxic, especially when it comes to the youth. And, thinking about how it's in the media and in the music and stuff now, the more harder drugs and stuff like that, it's showing that very problematic side of the music industry, and showing like the problematic side of how musicians often influence the youth, because it has been talked about by a lot of musicians, and kind of portrayed by a lot of musicians that like their drugs help them be creative, their drugs fuel their superpower and all of that, and all of that is very problematic, and it's not giving way to the realization or the acknowledgement that those musicians were talented, period. And it wasn't the drugs that was making them talented. They were using the drugs to cope from other things. And it probably, just helped them, seem to feel more relaxed when on stage, or, try to recover from whatever, they had a lot of trauma going on in the midst. And a lot of musicians were also having like abusive relationships with other people that they were performing with and things of that nature. So it's much more to it than just using the drug for creativity, because that's honestly a lie. Like I said, they weren't using the drugs for creativity. They were using the drugs to cope with everything that was going on in the midst of them being creative. So all that to say, definitely a much needed conversation of that time period, and it is still relevant today. But yeah, so Tommy pulls out the joint. Junior is reluctant, like, nah, dude, my dad'll kill me, like, no. And Tommy is like, look, he lays it on thick, all the musicians did this and that, and he's successful in convincing him to smoke that dope. We transition back downstairs onto the next scene, and Jay is frolicking around in this Madonna-like outfit. And Michael tells her she looks like a virgin with 3 kids. He petty. So, in the midst of them laughing and giggling and having a kiki about that, Tommy and Junior come downstairs high as a kite, and they giggling and laughing and stuff themselves, but they giggling and laughing for like little to no reason, of course. And so Michael asks them what's funny, and Junior, here we go with a direct reference. Junior is like, oh, Tommy put on this Cosby record and we was cracking up off that. And so with that reference there, that direct reference to Bill Cosby and his comedy, it really like confirms to me that this episode in particular is specifically to give homage to Bill Cosby and his works in the industry as a comedian, as an actor, as a show creator, and all of that. So when they say that about Cosby, the album, and all this, that, and the third, Michael then does an impersonation in which, I ain't gonna lie, the Wayans brothers in general, all of them do the best impersonations, specifically Bill Cosby impersonations. And I feel like, outside the Wayans brothers, Jamie Foxx is another comedian that does impersonations strikingly well. So shout out to all of them for that. But in the midst of that, it's like Tommy's so high, he done forgot what was going on. So he asking Michael, is everything okay with him? Because he doing, an impersonation and all of that. But what could also be going on here is that Tommy may not, because I feel like Junior is saying that Tommy put on a Cosby album. That's probably a lie. And so there could be an implication that not only is Tommy high, but Tommy may not know much about Bill Cosby at all. So therefore, Michael doing this impersonation is like, what is that? What are you doing? But yeah, he asked him, is he okay and all of that? And then Junior slides in and he's like, Mom, is it okay if we take some food upstairs? And that's interesting too that he referenced that question to his mama. And definitely, why, if you haven't watched the last review, the review I did of the last episode, just go to the playlist, child. And I talk about some things specifically concerning Jay and Junior's relationship and their bond and whatnot. But he asked if they can take some food upstairs, and Jay says it's okay as long as they clean up after themselves. So they go in the kitchen and get their snacks and whatnot. Michael's still on the couch acting silly, and Jay asks if Michael has found anything that he wants her to throw out. And he says, yes, that outfit you got on right now. And so they have another laugh about that. And the boys come back in with damn near all the food up out the kitchen. And they continue to go upstairs dropping stuff and laughing uncontrollably. And so Michael looks at them and he's like, them fools stoned. And so they go to commercial break type shit, and then they come back into, basically, I guess you could say, like a second part of the same scene. And Jay is pissed, honey. She is snapping. She is ready to throw down. And she gonna knock their heads so close together, so good that they share a chin. Baby, I cannot. But Michael is basically telling her to calm down, don't react so fast. As always, he has to go a creative route to solve the problem, which I feel like is definitely necessary in this situation because, one, they already high. So if you come at them with logic, especially, this being like, at least Junior's first time being high, that's not going, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to do no good. So you're going to have to go a creative route with this one. So Michael ends up calling them downstairs, and he and Jay are essentially acting high themselves. And they act like they watching TV, they laughing hysterically and all of that, but the TV ain't on, honey. Then they is like, someone's at the door, get the door. And so Tommy and Junior go to the door. Ain't nobody at the door, honey. Ain't nobody at the door. And then in the midst of them doing that, Jay and Michael get up. They like moving in slow motion, and they start to do the robot. And Junior and Tommy looking around like, what the fuck? And of course, this is sending them into tweaking. So Michael and Jay are essentially blowing they high. Blowing they high and doing stuff to cause them to tweak out. So they ask the boys, what's the matter? And the boys are like, ain't nobody at the door. And Michael is like, oh, okay, yeah, that was probably the knock from the other day. Bro, if somebody did this to me while I was high, oh my gosh, like, no. So they continue to play more mind games with them. And Jay asks Junior if he's okay, but she walks up and embraces Tommy. And so Junior is like, Mom, I'm fine. And she's like, shut up, boy, can't you see I'm trying to talk to my son? And then she starts speaking gibberish. I'm like, and this causes Tommy to tweak the entire fuck out. And it's like, I have to go now. And so he tries to run out, and Jay stops him and is like, be careful on the way home. There's a killer on the loose. And Michael is like, yeah. And they're looking for the black Backstreet Boy. So Tommy freaked the fuck out. He's like, oh no. And he just runs away. And so Junior is like, yo, I'm going to bed now. And Michael tells him, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to you. And he starts speaking to him like a static and TV type shit. Just making absolutely no sense. And boy, that is also like commendable that you can speak in a way that's like adjacent to a staticking TV. Child tits, how you impersonate a broke TV? Cute. I'm here for it. Let me up that skill, okay, with my damn self. I'm here for it. I'm inspired. So Junior then runs upstairs, but Jay stops him in the midst and continues to fuck with him. And she's like, no, what did you say? You're trying to say something. Michael, Junior's trying to say something. And so they have him repeating that, I'm going to bed now. I'm going to bed now. So Michael slaps the crap out of him and it's like, don't talk to your mother like that. Don't talk to your mother like that. And Michael points him in multiple different directions to tell Jay sorry. But in none of those directions is Jay actually located. And so Jay is actually behind Junior having a good old silent laugh. And Michael got him doing the most. He got him talking to the air, hugging the air, as if it's Jay, and telling him to give his mother a kiss. Child, Junior gonna kiss the daggone air like he kissing his girlfriend. So Michael smacked him again like, what's wrong with you, boy? Go on upstairs. Bruh, that is definitely an experience that would make you not want to indulge in any drugs, any type of like mind altering or mood altering anything, because bro, especially that being his first time, bro, I'm sure they freaking traumatized him. But that also gives you indication that one or both of them has been high before too, because they knew exactly what to do, right? Tisk. So in the next scene, Katie comes downstairs and she want to play. She want to play with Michael. And Michael is like, it's too late for old people to be playing. Why don't you try to go play with Claire? And Katie says that she hates Claire. And Michael stands up and he got on these golden shimmery hammer pants, honey. He look good in them, though. He look good in them, honey. So he's like, man, you must really be mad at Claire. And Katie is like, why you got on them stupid pants? And he like, these hammer pants. What you mean? And she said, no, stupid pants. And he like, hey, you can't touch this. And so here we do get like a little bit of mean shit from Claire. And like I said, it's a little more icy than mean. So Michael walks into the next room and essentially catches Claire coming through the door. And he approaches her as she comes into the house and confronts her about not playing with Katie, not spending time with her, essentially moving around like she's avoiding her. And that type of stuff is enough to like put a person in emotional turmoil, because you're not communicating. You just like kind of disrespecting their existence because you are disregarding them. You acting like they don't exist, like they don't mean anything to you. And then you're not replacing, you're not filling in the blanks with anything verbal or reassuring or anything of that nature. You just ignoring them, icing them out. So yeah, that, it's a little mean, but I don't know. So Michael reminds her, before then, Claire is basically saying that Katie's annoying and she feels like baggage. And that's essentially Claire not wanting that responsibility. Claire is a little used to being the youngest child still, and she's still resistant to being in a big sister role. And she don't want the responsibility of being a role model or a playmate to Katie. She's not understanding how to even relate to Katie, right? And I feel like a part of it is because she is kind of rejecting her own inner child because she's trying to grow up so fast. So she's like villainizing and like kind of looking at the childlike attributes as something that is a negative. So therefore she's seeing Katie as a negative. But so Michael reminds her of how she was once that age also. And so she herself had a lot of those characteristics. And Michael continues to explain that Katie is just looking up to her and wants to bond with her. And Claire reluctantly states that she knows. And so with that, you can see that Claire is not hateful at heart. She just don't know how to handle that responsibility that comes with having a younger sibling. So this is Michael having to basically assist her in navigating through that. So Michael emphasizes to her that how she treats Katie and the example that she leads is going to have a major effect on the type of person that Katie grows up to be. And he asks her, child, a very valuable question, which is, do you feel like you're acting like the type of person you would want to see Katie become? And child, she got to get real with herself and say no. Because essentially, the way that she's been moving and acting is showing Katie that it's okay to be an asshole just because you feel in a type of way. Or it's okay to ignore and disregard people just because you feel in a way, or just because you feel like they're annoying and all this other stuff. It's toxic behavior. It's toxic behavior, and it's not okay. And it might be a little contradictory to what I said before about me feeling like Claire wasn't exactly being mean. I think I just wouldn't label the behavior as mean specifically because I don't feel like Claire is coming from a hateful place. I don't feel like she's being directly mean. I think she is being selfish. I think what she's doing is not unusual. It's not really unnatural. It's just something where a parent has to intervene and redirect her. Like, if Michael didn't intervene in that moment, then it definitely would have became straight up mean. And what it is too is Claire wasn't intending to make Katie feel the way that Katie was feeling, but Claire's actions kept her from seeing and acknowledging that what she was doing was making Katie feel bad. And so that's where, like I said, eventually, if there was no intervention there, it would have became straight up mean. And Katie definitely would have became straight up mean. But once her and Michael essentially reach an agreement, Michael then booty bumps her on into the kitchen to go talk to Katie. And she goes in and she approaches her again. I feel she approaches her quite nicely. And she asks Katie, is she still mad? And Katie says, yep. And basically non-verbally dismisses her. So Katie is dismissing her the same way she's felt dismissed by Claire. So Claire just got to eat that up. And she then tries to redirect and reapproach the situation by turning the attention to the doll that Katie is playing with and trying to make a connection with her there. And she tells her that the doll is really pretty and asks her what the doll's name is. So, child, Katie rips the head off the doll and says, her name is Claire. And this again is where I want to give a spotlight and some shine on Parker's acting as a child, honey, because those beats, her facial expressions, her choices, like, of course, you know, it may be in the director's notes or whatever to rip the doll's head off, but the way she ripped it off, slammed it on the table, and she leaned into Claire like, you bitch. Like she could have made any type of body language choice with that. And the one she chose was right on the money. And the eye contact that she made with Claire when she did it, boy, skillful, I tell you, skillful. And shout out to her because she's also a Leo. Gang, gang, ah. But yeah, so Claire tells her that she owes her an apology and that she dumped her the other day and she shouldn't have. And Katie is like, that's right, with a little twitch of the neck, okay? You better be sassy, honey. You better get her together. So Claire continues to apologize, and she's like, you know, sometimes I can be really selfish, and I don't mean to be, but I'm just going to try really hard not to let that happen again. And will you forgive me? And so Katie ponders it a little bit, and she looks over, and she's like, what's in the bag? And Claire pulls out some glitter nail polish, and Katie is like, I love you. And so, child, she spoke her language, and she commits to painting Katie's nails as an act of service to, you know, officially mend the fence and everything. And we flash to the next scene. Junior is upstairs with a headache, laying down with some ice on his head. Michael comes upstairs being petty, and is like, oh, I heard you got a headache. He's like, yeah, and Michael slams the door. Junior says he had a tough night. Oh, yeah, I wrote a song about it. Like, here you go. Now, I can't remember if he said it exactly like that, but I do feel like that's also a callback to his sister, Kim Wance, on In Living Color. She had this skit where she's like this woman of the neighborhood that sits in the window and she gossip about everything. And she's like, you know, oh, want to hear about it? Got a story about it? Or wrote a song about it? Here you go. And it's also a clip that is at the beginning of In Vogue's Free Your Mind. See all these music, all these different references and themes and all of that coming together and tying together. Boy, that is on point. That is so, like, creatively excellent. Like, creatively brilliant on some shit. So, yeah. It's also like a clip of her at the beginning of a In Vogue song that says, Prejudice. Wrote a song about it? Like to hear? Here you go. Free your mind. Boom, 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 boom. Anywho. So I just like that callback there. And him like also kind of giving a little homage to his sister on some shit. But yeah. So he goes to the song, and the song is like, my son got a hold to a reefer last night. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know whether to hit him with the left or right. Dun, 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 dun. He probably thought Daddy wouldn't care. Dun, 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 dun. But if he do it again, my oldest kid gonna be Claire. And Junior is like, I'm sorry. And Michael says he's sorry too. And he goes in to tell him, yo, people do drugs to escape from things. What are you trying to escape from? Big, beautiful house full of people who love you? And Junior is like, I just wanted to expand my mind and be like Hendrix. And Michael is like, how about we try to be like somebody who's alive and not Robert Downey Jr.? Baby, I cannot, but I thoroughly agree because that's the same thing that I was thinking, baby. Let's try to be like somebody who is alive and thriving, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's also showing that they are living healthy for the most part, not abusing drugs and misusing drugs and things of that nature, you know? Okay, so Junior asked him if he's ever tried it, and Michael says no, he ain't never did drugs, he ain't never broke the law, and the first time he had sex is when Junior was conceived. But then Michael does admit that he did do it once, and he didn't like it. He only did it because of his friends. He said it made him feel dumb. And he says that if he had the relationship with his father, like he feel like he has with Junior, he probably wouldn't have done it at all. And so here we get some like implication that Michael is kind of questioning like if he is or has been going wrong somewhere in his and Junior's relationship, which I really like that. I really like that because a lot of the times parents or adults in general, when they approach kids in situations like this, they often just make it like, oh, it's you're bad, you're unruly, you ain't, all of that, instead of going internal and like essentially putting themselves in position to take accountability for somewhere that they may be going wrong. It's like recognizing that you are the parent, you are the first influence, and if he's going down this path, then it's something in yourself that you have to reevaluate to see how you may have influenced that, or somewhere you may have been neglecting, or just dropping the ball, overlooking things of that nature. And two, it's kind of another implication of Michael is newly around the house more now. And, I talked about that more so in the first episode review about how Michael is in a position in his career now with his business now where he's able to be at home more and therefore be more hands-on with the kids more. Whereas before the show actually starts, Michael was seemingly a workaholic. He was not around the house so much. He was like always at work, and Jay was the housewife, always around the house, having to do everything with and for the kids. So this could also be Michael kind of saying it without saying it, that like, do I need to give you more attention? Has my lack of presence, fed into this in any way? All of that. So Junior is like, everybody's trying it, and Michael goes down the typical peer pressure lines like, yeah, everybody's trying it. Yeah, it's a herb. It comes from the earth. It's like apples and kiwis, except you can smoke it. And that basically lets Junior know that, like, ain't nothing new under the sun. Like, the stuff that your friends saying to you to get you to do all of this crazy stuff, it's nothing new. It's stuff that's been said since the beginning of time. So you just got to be smarter than that. Not you got to be smarter than that, but you got to be wiser than that. You got to be more discerning than that. And so Michael tells him, it's self-destructive, and he hopes Junior doesn't go down that path. And Junior is like, there's all types of things around me. And Michael impresses upon him, like, look, the only thing you can really control is yourself. And essentially he's telling him, don't fall into this victim mentality or this victim role and making yourself a victim of your circumstances, or, this sheep product of your circumstances. Be a leader, take some authority over yourself. Like, yeah, you're a child, and yeah, there are all these circumstances, but at the same time, you are also old enough and you have enough access to be able to use some sort of more discernment and be a leader. And you're the oldest of your siblings. You should have a better sense of how to lead. But, child, and I'm definitely gonna end up doing just a whole separate video just to zone in on Jay and Junior's relationship and the influences of it and everything, because I feel like this kind of gives implication that because Michael was not around as much, Junior's sense of leadership is a little off because Jay coddles him. And that goes back to what I said about him asking Jay specifically, could they get some food and take it upstairs? He didn't ask Michael. Michael was sitting right there. Both of them were sitting right there. And he directed that question towards Jay. And it's because he knows he can get his way with her, which, like I said, one of many things that gives the implication that Jay coddles Junior. And another thing I noticed too is that when the father, a male figure or whatever, is not so present in the household, like talking about, the sons end up looking to their male friends as role models and kind of like, mimicking everything that their male friends do because they haven't had that father figure there to mimic. So it's kind of like Junior was kind of like mindlessly seeking fatherly influence from his friend, and that also gives way to where Michael is like, okay, has my lack of presence been an issue because you mimicking somebody totally different. Like, I don't know that person that you trying to mimic. You know what I'm saying? So let me check my own example that I'm leading and see how we can get this thing back on track. So yeah. Michael tells him he loves him and he doesn't want to lose him to drugs or anything else. And Junior is like, he'll never smoke dope again because he hated it. It was terrifying for him. I'm sure it was because, baby, they was going in on your boy and Tommy, honey. Messed they po minds up. And Junior is still oblivious. Like, he don't even realize that they basically, like, was pranking them. They was playing mind games with them. He goes down the line of everything that Jay and Michael did to mind fucks him and essentially believes that it was happening that way and appearing that way because he was high. Tisk. And Michael told him, happens like that every time. And Junior's like, for real? And Michael is like, yeah, sometimes it can have lingering, ongoing effects. And then he starts speaking like a skipping CD and walks out and slams the door. And so in the last scene of the episode, I'm guessing it's the next morning. But Michael steps out in this fluorescent white opal type tuxedo suit type shit, and Jay is still packing away clothes and whatnot, and he talking about it's his fantasy island suit. And I guess he wants to go to work in the suit. And he's also fucking with Jay. So Jay is like, oh, so you supposed to be Mr. Rump? And child, I'm too young to really know, but I'm guessing that Mr. Rump is a character from Fantasy Island. And he's like, no, I'm Tattoo, and I want to look up under your skirt. But Jay tells him, you're not going to work like that. And Michael is like, so what, I don't look like John Travolta? And Jay is like, no, you look like Uncle Ben. And Michael is like, I feel like his cousin from the Cream of Wheat box. Like, please shut. I love their relationship and exchanges and shit. And so Michael is like, so do I win? Do I get to keep all my stuff? And Jay is like, yes, you get to keep all your stuff. And he's like, good. Pack it all up, throw it in the trash. Like, bro, you did all of this. You did all of this just to go with what she was going to do in the first damn place. Men, I tell you, men. But I guess that's what he had to go through in order to learn from himself and for himself the value of letting go, the value of growing up and releasing some things. Which I love. I love the way all of the things were handled in this episode. I also love the way they did the homage to Cosby and, the references and essentially the homage as well as the addressing of real conversations concerning creativity, art, artists, music, and even the comedy aspect of it. Now, this is long before the Cosby scandals and all of that, but you still get to see, like, the influences of comedy. And while it was focused on the music aspect, there are also a lot of drug use that goes on with comedians as well. And certain comedians haven't had experiences of feeling like they have to be high or they have to be drunk or intoxicated in some manner in order to be funny or in order for people to just receive them. Like, they don't feel like their natural persona is enough to appeal to people. Child. It's a lot, honey. But I will say, too, that the sitcoms of this particular time period, like the early 2000s and some of them during the 90s and all of that, like specifically, if to use one specific example, over on Damon's Brothers shows, the Wayans Brothers, the show, the Wayans Brothers with Sean and Marlon, they had a marijuana awareness episode. And that episode focused in on the actor perspective of it, whereas Marlon is an actor, he's going out on auditions and he's looking up to these other actors that are popular and more established and all of that, and one of the actors impresses upon him that how he gets through and how he does what he does is through smoking weed. So he puts Marlon on, and when Marlon gets high, child, he goes to acting like a crackhead. And like I said, marijuana affects everybody differently, and I have seen certain people get a little slower than usual. They are not as they're not as intellectual as they are when they're sober, you know, and things of that nature. But Marlon was acting like a straight up crackhead, and of course it's hammed up for a comedic effect. But I feel like that was kind of a false and bad representation of the effects of marijuana. And granted, more education has happened over time now for people to understand that marijuana does not have the same effects as crack. And so, like, you know, that makes absolutely no sense for Marlon to have that type of reaction. It's like, was the blunt laced with coke? Like, what the freak? Did he smoke spice? Like, But in this episode of My Wife and Kids, I feel like it was a much better handling of it, especially being the fact that Junior and Tommy's natural reaction to being high was them just, you know, laughing at everything. Like I said, kind of being a little slow. They reflexes and their inhibitions was a little off. They had the munchies. Like I said, their coordination was a little off. They were dropping stuff. They were kind of bumping into each other a bit. And, you know, their perspective was a little off as well. And I like how instead of having them act a fool, it was Jay and Michael mindlessly acting a fool just to have them tweak out, to essentially cause them a bad trip. And so I feel like that was great, because if they were to have left the house and they were just having, you know, their little casual experiences of everything, say a cop approached them, and that causes them to tweak out and all that stuff. Like, it's better for them to have that experience at home, and it's a controlled experience because it's their parents intentionally and mindfully doing it to them, versus them going out being high, you know, because if they had gotten away with that, they would have definitely took it to the next level and been somewhere everywhere getting in trouble and having bad trips of their own, especially if they had ended up getting arrested, you know. So I like the way they handled it here. Now, a part of it I still feel like is a little bit problematic, because it gives the indication that marijuana is completely bad. Like, you know, it does kind of demonize marijuana, and I don't think that's accurate. But I understand the time period, you know, calls for that and all of that. And in general, as a parent, you don't want to encourage your child to become reliant on drugs. You know, even prescribed drugs is still something that you want to be careful about, because their brains are not fully developed, you know. So yeah, I'm here for the way that they handled all of the conversations of everything. I especially love the way that the conversations were handled with Katie and Claire, especially because in a lot of dynamics like that, some people and parents tend to just let the older sibling go in on the younger sibling. And sometimes they let the younger sibling just really bog down the older sibling. Like, they just say, oh, that's just what they do. They'll get over it. And it's like, no. No, it becomes bigger issues. And it becomes, you know, sibling rivalry and just, you know, these bigger issues. Like Michael was saying, the way you treat Katie is going to have a major effect in the type of person that she turns out to be. It's going to have a major effect on how she treats other people, especially people younger than her, or that she feels like are not as good as her, you know, whatever, what have you. And so that's some real shit. And I'm also, you know, speaking from experience, because I have sisters and I have experiences where I wish my parents would have intervened more. I wish other adults would have intervened more. Like, hey, let's figure out what the root of these issues are and nip them in the bud, instead of just letting shit progress terribly. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I really appreciate how they handled that. Just a very valuable episode all the way around. And with that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe, so that you can be one of the first to be back through these queenly quarters for the next time. And be sure to bless my comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you all light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.